Hello everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I am here to announce the 2022 month-long round of the BookoplAthon. So if you guys have never encountered the Bookopla'thon before, this is a readathon that is based on my TBR game. We have 2 rounds throughout the year. One, it takes place in September, which is the one that I'm announcing, and it takes place throughout the entire month. And the other round is a little bit earlier in the year, and it is usually a 48-hour round. This is also a readathon where you generate your own prompt, you have your own version of the board, and you essentially get to play my TBR game for the month of September with this exclusive readathon board. So if you guys have participated in the Bookopla'thon before, then everything is pretty much the same as it usually is. It is of course going to be running from the 1st to the 30th of September in whatever time zone you're in. So it pretty much starts at midnight and then goes right up until midnight on the final day of September. Everything that you guys need is going to be linked down in the description box, including the Twitter, which is at Becca's Bookopoly, where I retweet things throughout the month and also announce things for you guys. We also have a Discord community, which is more for you guys than it is for me, so you can help each other out with recommendations and that kind of stuff. And the most important thing that is down there is the Google Drive, which has all of the documents that you are going to need, especially your printable version of the board and the 6-page Bookopla'thon guide that has all of the information, all of the rules, and also a breakdown of every space on the board in case you land on something and you're unsure what it means. So you are going to need a few things for this readathon. The most important thing is of course your printable version of the board. If you don't have access for a printer, you can just open this up on Google Drive and just play along digitally using like a dice rolling app or the dice roller that's available on Google. I will say as well, for all of the printables, they do work a little bit better if you download them before printing them as opposed to printing them directly from Google Drive. And then there are people who go the extra mile with this as well. There are some people who make like a full-scale replica of my board, and also one of my favorite things about the Bookopla'thon is seeing everyone's gorgeous bujo spreads, and some people do just copy the board down into their bullet journal and play along in there throughout the month. You are also going to need something to move along the board with. I personally use a magnetic bookmark, and you are also going to need 2 6-sided dice. Now, like I said, if you don't have dice, you can use either a dice rolling app or like the dice that are available on Google, but it is kind of important that you have 2. Alternatively, if you only have 1, then you can just roll it twice. And then the last thing that you are going to need is your own version of the chance and community shelf cards. You have options with these. If you're going with the printable version of the board, you can download the mini versions from the Google Drive, and if you're making a bigger replica, then you can use the big ones that are the same size as the ones that I use on my board. But these are 2 stacks of cards that you may need to draw from during the readathon. So the chance cards are going to be a list of books. To make it a little bit more fun, you can have half of them as books that you're really excited to read and half of them as books that you're less excited to read. When you land on the chance space, you will draw from this stack and you have to read whatever book is on the card. Your community shelf cards are going to be a list of additional prompts. So if there's any prompts that you would have liked to have seen on the board that aren't there, or there's like no specific genre spaces on the board, so if you read a lot of sci-fi, you might want to put like read a sci-fi on a card, and if you land on community shelf, then you will draw from this stack and you have to complete whatever prompt is on there. Now typically in a Monopoly set there are 16, and I have 16 cards in each of my stacks. However, I do also play Bookopoly throughout the year, so if you don't want 16 cards, if you want to do like 4 or 6 or something, then go ahead. And if you can't print the cards, you can either make your own or create a list of books and prompts, assign each of them a number, and if you land on the space, you can use a random number generator to pick like which card you would have drawn, if that makes sense. Now there are 2 ways to play this game. You can either do it the way that I do it, where at the beginning of the month you make a TBR. I have 5 rolls as standards plus doubles, which I'll explain in a moment, but that is because I find that 5 books is an achievable amount of books for me to read in the month. So you can create your TBR at the beginning of the month the way I do. I'm just popping in during editing to make it clear that if you are going to be building a TBR at the beginning of the month, you choose how many rolls you want to do. So I do 5 as standard because that's achievable for me. If you only typically read like 3 books a month, you can go with 3. If you read 20 books a month, you can go with 20. Just do whatever is comfortable for you. Or if you're a little bit more of a mood reader, you can choose to to roll as you go, which essentially means that like at the beginning of the month you will roll and pick your first book, and then when you finished it you can roll, get a new prompt and pick a book to fulfill that prompt. Now for the rules, there are only a few. The first one is that everybody starts on the go space, which is in one of the corners. This is just like the standard rules of Monopoly and also where I start at the beginning of every year. The second rule is that if you roll a double, then you have to add a book. So like I said, my standard is 5 plus doubles. If I roll, for example, a double 3, that means I have to add an extra roll on, so it will take my total up to 6 books. We have had some issues with mood reading and rolling as you go with this rule, so there are a few suggestions and a few things that some people have been doing. Some people roll again and choose between the prompts. Some people roll again and have to pick 2 books at once instead of 1. And my favorite one is that some people roll twice and try to combine the prompts, but just do whatever you feel is like fitting to your style of reading. And the final rule is just for people who are really stuck or people who encounter a prompt that they really don't want to do. You do have the option of rolling again if you really just don't want to do the prompt that you've landed on. However, to stop people abusing that rule, you have to pick 2 books for the next prompt that you land on if you choose to do that. So that is pretty much all of the basics of what you guys need to know. So without further ado, let us jump into a full tour of your 2022 readathon board. Okay everybody, welcome to your 2022 readathon board. So I am going to be talking you through all of the spaces on this board. We're going to start off with the property spaces, which are the coloured ones, and then I'll fill in all the gaps going through like all of the corner spaces, the train stations and everything in between. All of the colour spaces are themed apart from these ones here which actually parallel each other. If you played Bookopoly before, then the blues and the browns are the same as they always have been. Starting off with the very first space on the board here, we have lowest rating, which is mirrored by highest rated. For this one you will go to your Goodreads TBR and you will organise your to be read shelf by rating, and you will read either the lowest rated or highest rated book that you are able to respectively. The other brown space is a small book or a book less than 300 pages, and this one is mirrored over here with big book, which is more than 500 pages. If you cannot fulfill either of these, if you don't have a book under 300 or over 500 pages, then just read the smallest or largest book that you are able to. So for the light blues, or in this case the purples, the theme we have is things that can be found on the cover. Ideally these would be the focal points of the cover. The first space, which once again features this beautiful work of art, is people, so a book with people on the cover, illustrated or photographed, doesn't matter. This one is patterns and text, so pretty much a cover that is mainly the title of the book with some sort of like decorative things around it, or a book cover that is kind of like more of a pattern than anything else. And then the last one for this set is buildings, so a book with buildings on the cover. For the pinks, the theme is time periods. My kind of inspiration behind these was like 90s noughties now, or like 19s noughties and now. So the first one is a book that is published or set in 1999 or earlier. The second one is a book that is published or set between the years of 2000 and 2019, and the last one is a book that is published or set since the year 2020. If you cannot fulfill either of these two, then pick your most recently published book or your like oldest published book to fulfill these prompts. The oranges are very much dependent on you guys. It is based on your favorite. So the first one is favorite trope. A trope is a literary device that is used to kind of like symbolize something or like a recurring genre theme. So examples are like enemies to lovers, hate to love, the chosen one, here comes the cavalry, found family, that kind of thing. So think of one that you really like and try and find a book that you think is going to have that trope. The second one is favorite setting, and this one can be as broad or narrow as you would like it to be. This can Hamilton, thank you. It could be something like a book set in London, or a book with a school setting, or it could simply be something like a book set in space, or a book set in like a medieval fantasy setting. And then the last one is favorite genre, so obviously read a book that is your favorite genre. For the reds, you are going to be using random generators, and I have actually linked some in the BookoplAthon guide. The first one we have is emoji, so you're going to go to a random emoji generator. The one that I've linked allows you to generate more than one emoji at once, so it's up to you whether you you choose to just generate one or whether you want more than one. But ideally you are going to pick a book that fits the emoji. So if it's like heart eyes, you might want to read a romance. If it's like a knife, you might want to read a thriller, that kind of thing. There is no like wrong answer with this as well, because it is very much up to your interpretation. For letter, you are going to generate a random letter, and either the title of the book or one of the author's names has to start with that letter. If you get a really awkward letter or a letter that you just cannot do, like a Z or an X or something like that, then feel free to regenerate. And this one is Color Wheel, which is very much inspired by G and the Magical Readathon. And for this one, you're going to pull up a random color wheel, give it a spin, and whichever color you land on has to be the color of the cover of the book that you pick. The theme for yellows is things that you can kind of gather from the synopsis of a book. So like a lot of YA fantasy features a romance, and you can just tell from the way that the synopsis is set up that there's probably going to be something romantic going on between two characters. So this is the kind of thing that we're looking for here. So the first one obviously features a romance. The second one is features a mystery. So maybe somebody is hunting for the person who murdered their friend. Maybe they're looking for a missing item. Maybe it is like a straight up murder mystery. And then the last one is a book that features a death. So like a lot of fantasy will play into this, because there's a lot of revenge plots going on because somebody's friend or family member was murdered, and also like murder mysteries and things would work for this as well. We also have like, if you're reading an epic fantasy series where the stakes are high, there's probably going to be a death in the last book in the series. You could very much like use the last book in a fantasy series for this prompt as well. The greens are perspectives. So the first one is first person perspective. So essentially the story will be told from the perspective of the main character, and you can identify first person as the text will be like, I want to go to the park, or like I ate dinner, or like I was thinking about things. Generally just the word I is in there a lot. The next one is third person. So the story is being told about the character. So it's like Becca wanted to go to the park, Becca ate dinner, etc. And the last one is multi-perspective. So the story is told from the point of view of more than one character. Moving on to the corner spaces, go is as it's always been. It is go and randomize your TBR. So either use your Goodreads TBR, your physical TBR, grab a stack of books, assign numbers to them, and use a random number generator to find out what you're going to have to read. Dice Roll Roulette is a new one. There is a table in the Bookoplathon guide that will help you out with this, but you are essentially going to roll 2 6-sided dice. Every dot on the dice represents 50 pages, and you are going to have to find a book with a similar amount of pages to the number you rolled. So if you roll a 5, you are going to want to find a book as close to 250 pages as you possibly can. In the table in the guide, there are going to be the limits for each number that you roll, so you are ideally going to want to find a book like in between those numbers, but if you can't get it exactly within that bracket, then just as close as you can possibly get to your roll. And then the 2 corners on this side are ones that you've seen before. I've just rearranged them a little bit. Over here, of course, we have our tribute to TBR games. So for this one, you are going to find a TBR game. There is a playlist linked in the guide, and you are either going to recreate that game to generate yourself a prompt, use a prompt that another creator has generated for you using their TBR game, or just pick a book that is in a TBR game video, like just steal a book from that person's TBR. And then finally over here we have Becca Rec. So this is read any book that I have rated 4 or 5 stars, and in the guide there is a link to the playlist that has all of my recommendation videos in if you want to have a look through and find something. The train stations this time are based on seasons, so we have spring, summer, autumn and winter, and these are kind of like the vibe spaces that were present on last year's board. They're very much open to your interpretation, and you are going to read a book that reminds you of the season that you land on. So if you land on spring, like spring to me is like a floral cover, a book with pastels on the cover, like a coming of age contemporary kind of story. Summer is very much like romance or summer thrillers, very fast-paced reads. Autumn is more like cozy reads, books with like copper foiling, or like a warm or dark and moody color tone, mysteries and thrillers. And winter is like a book with icy blues or like a very pale white cover. I tend to read a lot of high and epic fantasy in winter, and also like around Christmas time I tend to read quite like comforting books and like childhood favorites and things like that. And then for everything else on the board, we have the community shelf and the chance spaces, which as you guys already know correspond to the community shelf and the chance decks of cards. You land on either of these and you will pick a card from the the corresponding stack. We of course have TBR Veteran, which is a book that has been on your TBR for a long time that you really need to read. Over on this side, we have the famous poll pick. If you land on this, then choose a handful of books and put a poll on a social media of your choice and have people vote on which one they want you to read. If you at the Twitter, then I can retweet some of these for you. And also if you join the Discord, you can do like an emoji poll in there and people will vote on that and help you out. Over on this side, Mood Read is back, so this is pretty much a wild card. Just read whatever you want to. You can either do this at the TBR stage and pick a book that you want to read throughout the month, or just mood read a book throughout the month and then use it to fulfill this prompt in hindsight. And then on this side, I think the final square on the board that we need to cover is most recent purchase. This doesn't have to be a purchase. This can be like the most recent book you borrowed from the library, or you rented on Kindle Unlimited, or were gifted by a friend. Just the most recent book that you've kind of acquired. I do hope you guys enjoy this board as well. Every year that I make one, it gets harder and harder to make a board with like completely different prompts from the year before. So there are just a few more little extras that I have to tell you guys. The first one is that I am going to be mainly using Twitter as a way of announcing things for the readathon. If I'm doing sprints or something, then I'll probably throw it up in my Instagram story as well. But in terms of like anything else that's going on, that will probably mainly be on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, I would recommend making one because it is pretty much the only place I'm going to be posting. A lot of people are good at transferring information from Twitter into the Discord, which is also an option for you guys to join. That is, like I said, predominantly a community space where we have like spaces for every square on the board or every group of squares so that you guys can give each other recommendations. There's spaces to post your TBR, your Bujo spreads. There's also spaces there for reading sprints, just a general discussion thread, and it's just like a really fun active space to be in during the month of September. I personally am going to be planning on doing 2 sets of reading sprints per week for you guys. One of them is going to be on my channel. I am going to vary the days that I do them as well, so we'll have some like weekend ones, some weekday evening, maybe weekday daytime as well one week, and I will probably be joined by a few guests for that. And then the other set is going to be on my Patreon because I do generally do weekly reading sprints on Patreon anyway. And also while we're here, I'd like to shout out my patrons and say a big thank you to you guys because my patrons do also serve as like a sounding board for ideas for some of the prompts, and like if I need to add things to a theme for the board, then I often go to Patreon and ask my patrons. So thank you so much to you guys for your help with this board. And then the last thing I have to talk to you guys about before I sign off is the merch for this round. So I'm normally real lazy about making merch for my own readathon. If you guys don't know, I have a business where I make Bookish candles, so I tend to make candles for everyone else's readathons and don't really do much for my own, but I have pulled it out of the bag this year. So we do of course have a new BookoplAthon candle. This one is the 2022 version, so it is a different scent than the last one. This one is chocolate, rum, vanilla and sugar. It is like a real sweet vanilla-y scent, but it is absolutely gorgeous and I am obsessed with it. Vanilla is one of my favorite fragrances, which is why we have a vanilla-y candle. If you guys have been following my little business recently, you will know that we've also branched out and now offer coasters and mugs. There's only a couple of things up there so far, but we do have an official BookoplAthon mug and a BookoplAthon coaster, which are also going to be available. These feature the same design, but this one has the pattern wrapped completely all the way around, and the coaster is essentially 1/2 of the mug. The final piece of merch that we have has sadly not arrived, and you know, I have put this entire readathon together in the space of a week, and the only thing that I was on it with, the only thing that I did ahead of time was put a set of bookmarks in for printing, and the company that I use to make my foiled bookmarks has actually had a machine breakdown, so my order has been delayed. But I can show you a picture of the BookoplAthon bookmark. Once again, very similar design to the mug and the coaster. These are also going to be available if you are a member of my Inner Circle tier on Patreon, where you get your monthly bookmark. You are going to get this bookmark as an additional bookmark in August, so please like do not purchase. Like, you guys are good, you will all have your bookmarks. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to see it when it finally arrives. It's going to be gold foil and it's supposed to be with me before these are going on sale, so fingers crossed I actually have them. If not, it'll be more of a pre-order situation, but this is the company that I use all the time for all of my foiled bookmarks for Patreon, so like the quality, like I know they're going to come through for me. So if you are wanting to get your hands on any of these, then they are all going up for sale at the same time, and that is going to be 7 p.m. BST on Friday the 19th 19th of August. Now please do not worry if you miss out in this first drop, because I will 100% be doing at least one more drop of products at some point between like now and the middle of September, so you will have another chance. One last thing, there is going to be a page tracker as well, which I will link in the description box of this video. It does not exist at this moment. I will put it in on like the 1st of September so that people aren't filling it out before the readathon starts and I have to delete a bunch of stuff, but that will be here for you guys as well, and everything is also going to be in a pinned thread on Twitter where you can also access all of the information you need. But I think that is everything that I need to tell you guys about the 2022 round of the BookoplAthon. I hope you guys are going to participate. Let me know down in the comments if you are. I hope you like the board. I hope you're excited about the merch, because I am like seeing everything come together, the board included, because I've done all of this in a week, has been real satisfying. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am. I'll see you all on Twitter, I'll see you all on Discord, and until then, may the rolls be ever in your favor. So please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head to my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish candle website where you can get all of your merch, and the Etsy for EU customers. And there is also a 10% off discount code down there for you guys as well. But that is it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.